Brain injury is a threat that all football players face. Offensive and defensive linemen in particular are at risk of developing chronic traumatic encephalopathy resulting from repetitive subconcussive blows to the head. The solution, and the best way to protect these guys from taking too many shots to the head, is to make sure that every lineman is as skilled as he can be at hitting with his hands. When two linemen face each other on the line of scrimmage, they're probably going to hit each other. The question is how. What are they going to use to hit the other guy? It's either going to be their head or their hands. Therefore, to protect these guys and to give them the best chance of not hitting with their heads, it's imperative that these linemen are as comfortable and as natural at hitting with their hands as they can be. Hopefully by now the game's evolved past the day of coaches teaching linemen to put a hat on somebody. But until a player is trained to the point that he's proficient with his hands and he's confident with his punches, he's going to continue to hit with his head. And this is what's going on now and what's causing the problem with CTE and linemen. At all levels, linemen are taught to shoot their hands into the opponent's chest when they come off the ball. It's a technique that calls for the player to throw a straight two-handed punch into his opponent's pads with his hands inside, and this way gaining leverage and control of the other players. This is the right idea, but in practice, even a casual observer can see that overwhelmingly, players on both sides of the ball lead with their head when they make contact with their opponent. Look at some of your own team's film sometime and really observe how the linemen hit each other when they come off the ball. You'll see nearly every player make contact first with his head and then try to press his arms out to full extension. In theory, shooting the hands is supposed to be a punch, but in practice, it's a headbutt and a press. Punching is a skill, just like swinging a golf club, and it takes correct instruction and lots of repetition to develop punching skills. Linemen don't get nearly enough punching practice to get good at it. Smash Mouth Gym is a program that uses boxing to teach football players how to punch and then translate the punching power they've learned to the game of football. And the first thing we teach players is how not to hit with their heads. Like fighters, our players learn to hit with their arms fully extended and their heads back and safely away from contact. When we work on a player's shoot the hands technique, first thing we do is train them how to throw straight punches correctly, so the player develops a feel for timing and range, and he learns how to get all his body weight out into his hands. Once that feel is developed, transferring the punch to football technique is simple, because once the player has command of his punches, shooting the hands is just a matter of throwing punches he's thrown hundreds of times in the gym, and he understands. When a player understands the leverage, shooting the hands becomes second nature to him. He can step with either foot from either a righty or lefty stance, and in one step get all his body weight into his hands with his arms fully extended and his head back. He can do it moving left, right, forward, backward. He can do it from long range and in close. He can do it in combination with any other move. He gets it. Given a choice between hitting something with his hands or hitting something with his head, the only guy who'd ever choose to use his head is a guy who really doesn't know how to use his hands. That's what's going on with linemen. To protect these guys and give them an alternative to using their head, they need to be trained how to hit with their hands. Punching is a skill, and nobody knows how to punch just because they're big and they lift a lot of weights. It takes training to learn how to punch correctly. It doesn't take any training to headbutt somebody. Anyone can do that. Unfortunately, as new medical reports suggest, that's exactly what they are doing. And tragically, linemen are only going to continue to use their heads to hit each other and expose their brains to CTE until somebody does something to protect these guys and give them an alternative they can use.